So in my last video, we went through the entire line of the MAV AquaDoc hot tub products. And again, as I mentioned in that video, they did send those to me for free for me to review, but they did not pay me to make the video. And if you watched that video, you know I was pretty honest and brutally honest at some points. And if you haven't seen that video yet, you should watch that video now before continuing with this one, because in this one, I'm gonna break down exactly what I'm seeing in my hot tub's water now, a week after using their products. So go watch that video now if you haven't seen it. I'm gonna put a card for it right up here, and you'll see it in the description down below as well. And then come back and watch exactly what happened in my hot tub after using their products. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from Hot Tub Owner HQ, and I'm glad you're here with me. So let's take a look at the water and see what it looks like. After all, it's been a week since we used their products. I added hot tub shock. I also added bromine tablets in my floater. We know that there was a concern with how well the bromine tablets disintegrated based on some of the Amazon reviews we saw. So we're gonna take a look right now and see what the bromine tablets look like in my floater and see if they did indeed dissolve or not. But let's look at the water right now first and gauge how clear it is, because if you saw the video last week, then you know that I used their non-chlorine shock, and usually I do use a chlorine shock in conjunction with my bromine tablet. So it's the first time in a long time I've used non-chlorine shock, and I switched to chlorine shock because I used to get kind of cloudy water using non-chlorine shock. So let's take a look right now. I'm going to move the camera so you can see the water a little better. Let's take a look at that water. As you can see, to me, it looks pretty darn clear. We're also going to test the water with a test strip here and see how the levels are looking as well. But I'm pretty happy with the clarity of the water in there right now. So let's test the water and see how the levels are actually looking. Dip it in for about 2 seconds. I shake it off. I'm going to hold this up so you can see it a little bit better. As you can see, the actual chlorine levels are actually a little bit on the high side. So what that tells me is I probably need to close the fins on my bromine tablet floater a little bit more. Alkalinity and pH levels are both too low. We did adjust those up last time, but obviously we didn't do it enough. So we're going to address those things right now, but obviously we know that the bromine tablets in here must be disintegrating. And again, that was a complaint in at least one of the Amazon reviews we looked at last week. So let's see how well they disintegrated. I don't know if you can see that, but they're very close to gone. So they've disintegrated quite nicely in my hot tub. I'm not sure what was up with the reviewer who said they weren't disintegrating for them. It could possibly be that the fins were all the way closed on their floater. I, as you saw last week, like to keep mine just barely cracked, but I'm going to actually close mine a little bit further because clearly the chlorine levels are a little bit too high. So now, as you can see, it looks like it's pretty much totally closed, but there is gaps in there where the water can get in and help dissolve those tablets. But we do want to slow that down a little bit. I am going to add some pH and alkalinity increaser to get those levels up though, because those are still too low. And we saw that they were low last time, but obviously I didn't add enough of their product to raise it up to the correct level. So let's do that now. I also want to say that normally with the bromine tablets as disintegrated as they are, I would typically put more in at this point because they're almost gone. However, because the levels are a little higher than I want them to be, I'm actually going to wait a little bit and let the levels get back down into the right range before I add more. So I've got here their pH increaser and their alkalinity booster. We need both of those things. The pH increaser is actually a liquid. I'm going to pour both of these in, and then I'm going to turn the power back on because, as you know, if you've watched any of my videos, I always cut the power to my hot tub while I'm recording so it doesn't kick on in the middle of the recording and make a bunch of noise. So I'm going to add a little bit more of that than I did last week because it still needs to come up a fair amount, and the alkalinity booster as well. And the alkalinity booster is a powder. And if you recall from last week, I added maybe half a capful. I'm going to do that twice at this point because, again, whatever we did last week wasn't enough and it still needs to come up a relatively fair amount. So we're going to turn the power back on, let that kind of circulate, get in every nook and cranny of the hot tub's water, and then we'll test it again in about 20 minutes and see how it's looking and see if we need to adjust further. Okay, it's now been about 20 minutes since we added the alkalinity booster and the pH increaser. Let's go ahead and test the water again and see if the levels are about where we want them to be. Again, I dip a test strip in about 2 seconds. I shake off the excess. As we know, the chlorine levels are a little higher than we want them to be. However, The alkalinity and the pH are both now in the normal range. So the amount that we added there was good. Again though, how much you need to add depends on where you're starting with as well. If you're way low, you're obviously going to need to add more than I did, right? So always start small. You can always add more. You can't add less. But overall, I'm extremely pleased with what I'm seeing in my hot tub with the MAV AquaDoc products. And I'm really happy that the non-chlorine shock did indeed give me clear water. That makes me very happy because a non-chlorine shock is naturally going to be gentler on the skin than a chlorine-based shock is. And that was one of the main things I wanted to test. But I did also want to test how well the bromine tablets dissolved. And as you saw, they're clearly dissolving quite well. Non-issue there as well. In fact, maybe next time, because the levels are high, I might even put in fewer tablets than I did this past time. I put in 6 last time. I might go with 4 next time and then see how well that does on my test strip. But overall, I'm really happy with their products, really happy with everything that I tested. I did not test every single product in my hot tub, as you saw in the last video, because some of them just don't apply to my current situation. But I do think it's a good product line. As I did in the last video, I'm going to put links to those products down below in the description on Amazon in case you want to check them out. But thanks for being here with me. If you have something you'd like to see in a future video, leave me that in the comments down below. But for now, I'll see you in the next video.